For landlords, by landlords. The Rent Perfect Podcast with David Pickron.
Well, hello. We welcome you to another episode here with Scott and I on the Rent Perfect Podcast.
That's right.
We hope that you subscribe and like and share us with other people as we're trying to get, all the efforts that we do to out to the general public of small landlords who don't really get a whole lot of training. There's no school. We just kind of fly by the seat of our pants sometimes. It's the way that it works.
Yeah, you find yourself buying an extra house and all of a sudden, I'm a landlord.
And I don't know what to do.
Right.
And, and in such a litigious world with fair housing and all this stuff, there's a lot of things that we need to know that we kind of have to learn in the world of hard knocks,
yep.
right?
Yeah.
So anything that we can share with you, whether our clients are talking to us about it or we're having those issues ourselves, we certainly want to bring it to your attention. Now, Scott, one of the things I get asked when I'm out kind of speaking around the country is, do you guys provide a lease in Rent Perfect? And we provide a template of a lease, right, but we don't certainly control your lease. You can edit, change the lease, bring in your own verbiage or whatever. But some people say, well, how long is your lease? And it's 47 pages. Yeah, look at you. You're cringing right now just thinking of a 47
It hurts my heart
lease.
just to think about that.
Now, one of those reasons is, we're viewing this lease on our phone.
Right.
So it's kind of blown up. It's got a lot of spacing. If it was printed out like we normally see a lease, it would only be like 32 pages.
Yeah, just a mild 32.
Just a mild 32
Just a short
pages.
story or two, yes.
And people cringe at that. They're like, I don't think my brain can deal with 32 pages, and I don't think my tenants are going to read 32 pages or the 47 online. And they're probably right.
Yes.
Right. But how did we get to that big of a lease? So our legal counsel, Denny Dobbins, who has spent a lifetime in the courts fighting for landlords, every time he had a complication in court or he lost a case over something, he came back and put that clause in the lease and said,
line item, right?
I will never lose a case again, or my clients won't lose a case based on this. And so over the years and years of all the trial work that he did, he built this pretty exceptional lease that covers you like...
It's like the all-inclusive lease.
It is.
If it's not in there, you probably don't need it.
It is. But, in our lease in Rent Perfect, you can pull sections out, you can add to them, you can change the verbiage. So why do I say all this? I say all this just because I feel like in the last 5 years, we're in the building your criteria mode. We built our lease for a long time, and we kind of thought that our lease was our criteria, but the crazy thing about a lease is no one ever sees a lease until you're ready to move in.
Yeah, till
right?
signing day, right? Yeah.
So along came the criteria that Fair Housing wants us to give people before they apply, by the way. And that criteria is almost like a summary of what's in our lease.
Yeah, it's a pre-lease look at, kind of a look ahead.
So here's a real quick 1 or 2 pager.
Yep. Bullet points.
This is what my lease looks like. It's not going to have all the legal verbiage. You don't need to sign it. But if you don't like the summary, you're not going to like the lease.
You're really not going to like the lease
when we get to the lease. Okay, so we're really focusing on building the criteria lately, and something came up this week, and really it's been on my mind for a while with some new regulation and laws going around the country, is we need to start adding timelines into our criteria, okay? Because timelines, if we don't add timelines, it seems like there's nothing really set, no parameters set. Let me give you an example. Someone calls me on the phone and says, hey, I'd like to come look at your property, okay?
Okay.
I'm available in 3 weeks. I'm not going to hold that property.
Yeah. Right.
And some people are saying, oh, Dave, that's dumb. I would never. But I'm not going to hold that property. Okay, great. There's one example of a timeline. I'm just giving you a timeline. Right? Okay, I've showed the property, and someone says, hey, I want it. What do I need to do to hold it? Okay, you've got 24 hours to get me a hold deposit.
Okay. Yeah.
If I don't tell them that, how long do they have to get me the hold deposit?
It's indefinite, right? I mean, unless you define for them what it is, then they're going to define for themselves.
Right. So on my criteria, I'm going to give them at showing, it's going to say if you're interested in the property, I need a hold deposit within 24 hours equal to this much money.
Sure.
Right. So there's a time limit on it, right? Okay, so I send you the application either online or give you a paper one, however you do it. How long do you have to fill that out? Right?
Yeah, great question.
I mean, I have tenants that are applicants at that point that go a day or two, and I'm like, hey, are you still applying? Well, if I have that in my criteria saying you've got 24 hours to submit an application to me, I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to beg you. I'm just going to go to the next person in line. And when you come back and say, hey, you sent me an application, but you rented to somebody else, fair housing, you didn't want to, what about? No.
Yeah.
In my criteria, I told you had 24 hours to fill that out. And if you don't fill it out within 24 hours, then I'm moving on to the next person. Now, timeline also is, okay, hey, I've applied with you, I've been approved, but I don't want to move in for a month. So I want you to lose a month worth of rent and hold my property so I can move in a month. So there needs to be timelines there too. Maybe it's 2 weeks from when you say you'll take it. But I think timelines.
Well, is it even move in or is it start collecting rent? Because I mean, they could say I'll start paying rent, but I can't move for 6 weeks. I mean,
first month's rent, you take possession of the property. I don't care when you move in. You can move in a year from now, but rent is going to start.
Okay.
So we never really, in the past, we haven't put timelines into our criteria, and we've just started putting timelines in there because we were banking on us just verbally telling them.
Mm-hmm.
But we think that with a lot of the laws coming out and a lot of regulation coming out, we need a document that we treat everybody the same, and then we give everybody the same timeline. I'm not going to wait a month to rent to you because you're white, but I'm only 2 weeks to you because you're black, or you're using Section 8 housing, or you're doing this or you're doing that. So I think a lot of criteria that I see don't have timelines in them, and I really think we need to add timelines into our
the more
criteria.
well-defined we can be on that front end is makes the lease much easier too.
So I'm hoping someday we don't have a 47-page criteria,
right?
Because that would just become our lease. But we do need to have this information up front to protect us, right? Now, I have clients that do Section 8 housing that love it. They're set up for it. They buy property based on this is going to be Section 8 housing, and it's their business model. But this source of income is kind of coming through the country right now, and it's forcing a business model on landlords that don't have that business model, right?
Right.
They're not used to dealing with a government agency and all the red tape and all the work. So if you're in a jurisdiction that says, hey, you have to accept source of income rent, so you have to accept Section 8 housing, do you realize it takes 2 months to get all the paperwork, applications, inspections in before someone from Section 8 can move in? That means you're eating 2 months of rent.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to eat 2 months of rent. So I'll say by the time you apply and get approved, you have 2 weeks to move in or at least start paying rent. And this thing needs to move along quickly. I'm not in the business of holding housing and waiting for something to come down the line. So is it a loophole, not a loophole? I'm not really looking for a loophole. I'm honestly thinking if I've got an empty unit, I need to get it rented. If Section 8 can move that quickly and pay me my money within 2 weeks, I'm okay with Section 8. But see, the whole problem with Section 8 with me is it's the bureaucracy. It's the timelines. It's the paperwork. It's the inspections. And so therefore their program doesn't work for me. Has nothing to do with the people who are applying.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's just the process.
So I think if we put in timelines and just let everybody know how we function, operate, how our business model works, and what we're willing to do, and we put that on a piece of paper and give it to you before you apply, I think you're going to be in a lot stronger position to fight any kind of allegation or anything coming your way saying you're treating me differently than anybody else. So we always say document. Change this in your criteria. If you want a sample of what we're talking about, you can email us at info@rentperfect.com. We'll send you a sample of some verbiage that you could add to your criteria, or you can add into your criteria in the Rent Perfect program. So pretty cut and dry and short podcast, but get your timelines in your criteria, and until next time, continue to rent perfect.